This is a guide on the Guardian Druid challenge for the Mage Tower, and I hope you find it helpful. Enjoy! The talents I used were Brambles, Wild Charge, Balance Affinity, Mighty Bash, Incarn, Survival of the Fittest, and Run and Tear. For my gear, I used the crafted Dreadful Gladiator's Dragonhide set for everything but wrists and cloak. For wrists, I used Bracers of the Dreamgrove, which you can buy from your class hall, and I didn't worry about replacing my cloak or weapon. I used my Heart of Azeroth for my necklace, and I used Dawnlight Band and Shadow Ruby Band as my rings. The trinkets I used were easy to get, and they increased my damage by a lot. I used Unblinking Gaze of Seath from Hellfire Citadel, and Ravaged Seed Pod from the Emerald Nightmare. For the sockets, in total I used 12 Crimson Spinal Gems and an Agile Primal Diamond for the helmet. For consumables, I'd recommend starting off with ones that persist through death until you're close to killing Kruul. The flask I used was the Greater Flask of the Currents. I applied Shadowcore oil to my weapon, and I used a Heavy Desolate armor kit. When I was ready to start using other consumables too, I used the cheapest drums since they all gave the same effect. I used a potion of Unbridled Fury, and I ate whatever I had in my inventory. On my successful run I had twice baked sweet potatoes, but I've also been using bear tartare a lot.
I am empowered by the souls of 1,000 conquered worlds.
Now on to the boss fight. I start off by going in Moonkin form and eating while I wait for the dialogue to finish. I use my focus macro on Inquisitor Varus. You can find the macros I use and more information in the description. As soon as I can attack the boss, I start off with a Star Surge, then Sunfire, and Wrath 2 times for the Lunar Eclipse buff. Whenever the Tormenting Eyes spawn, I simply use Moonfire on them. To interrupt the boss's first Drain Life cast, I use Typhoon. That's the only time I use Typhoon as an interrupt. From now on, I'll only use Skull Bash to interrupt the boss's Drain Life cast. Don't worry about interrupting Mind Rend. When the first set of ads spawn, I bring them to the boss and use my Ravaged Seed Pod trinket. The Tormenting Eyes will cast an ability at you called Inquisitive Stare. You need to stare back at them by the time they finish casting, or else you'll get knocked back. For the rest of this fight, I'll try to stay in Moonkin form as much as I can. I'll use Star Surge on cooldown, Starfire, and Regrowth when needed. When the Infernal ads spawn, they'll cast an ability called Smash. All you need to do is pay attention to the ground and stand out of their way. If you're in their way, you'll get knocked back. When the second set of ads spawn, I bring them to the boss, and I use Bark Skin and Frenzied Regeneration if needed. To interrupt their cast, I'll use Incapitating Roar. I try to stay near the boss so I can keep 3 stacks of Thrash on the boss at all times. I also try to make sure Moonfire is up on the boss for that extra bit of damage.
4, 3, 2, 1.
When the third set of ads spawn, I'll bring them to the boss and use my trinket again. As Kruul is coming into the fight, I try to make sure I'm at a decent amount of health. I'll instantly use Incarn, Drums, and my potion of Unbridled Fury. I like to spam Thrash on the boss, although I don't spend my rage on anything just yet. Every now and then, Kruul will jump at you and place a green puddle on the floor. You need to move out of this, as it'll slow you down and end up doing a lot of damage. When he casts his first Annihilate, I like to use Mighty Bash and then spam Iron Fur. When the boss casts Twisted Reflections, you need to interrupt. If you let the cast get off, then every time Kruul hits you, he'll heal for 5% of his maximum health. Although if you let Twisted Reflections get off and you quickly use an orb next to Velen before Kruul hits you, you can remove the debuff. You'll continue to deal with ads in the same way. You'll continue to use Incap to interrupt the Nether Horrors and use your trinket on them on cooldown.
4, 3, 2, 1.
For Kruul's second Annihilate, I'll quickly use an orb to make sure I'm at full health, and then when he begins to cast again, I'll use Bark Skin to survive. After this Annihilate, I'm nearly dead, so I make sure all the Nether Horror adds are close together, and I'll use another orb. As you can see, the Infernal adds are still trying to knock you off, and I did get knocked back. I quickly used Wild Charge. Something I didn't do during this boss fight, which you can definitely do, is use Regrowth to heal yourself if needed. For the third Annihilate, I'll use Mighty Bash once more, and then after he begins casting again, I'll use another orb. After this, I'll finally use Survival Instincts to survive the third Annihilate.
Four, three, two.
Since I was low on health, I decided to use another orb. To survive the fourth and final Annihilate, I used Survival Instincts and Bark Skin. And if you've gotten this far in the fight, then congratulations on your brand new bear form appearance and achievements. This might sound obvious, but what helped me a lot was planning everything ahead of time. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any other advice, tips, or feedback, post it in the comments. Thank you for watching and good luck.